as we move into our next session, a roundtable discussion on gender responsive procurement, making women count. The session will last for 1 hour 20 minutes. I warmly welcome Yamini Atmavilas, Dr. Yamini Atmavilas, to take her place on the stage as the moderator for this important session. I would also like to invite our esteemed panelists to join on stage for this session. I welcome on stage Madam Mercy Pau, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, Government of India. Can we have a huge round of applause? Thank you. I warmly welcome Mr. Anurag Avasthi, Chief Manager, Social Impact and Inclusive Seller Growth, Government e-Marketplace. Mr. Avasthi. Our next panel speaker is Ms. Nandita Sharma, Lead Social Sector, Open Network Digital Commerce, as most of us know, ONDC. I also heartily welcome Suhaila Khan, Country Program Manager, Women's Economic Empowerment, UN Women India. I request all of you to take. But before we get into the session, and I request Yamini to take over, we have a release of the landscape study. Can I request the reports to be brought up? Yeah. No. So I would request the panelists to please stand, come in the front. May I also request our CEO, Vipin Sharma, to join us on stage, and Soumya Umar. So this landscape study, Gender Responsive Public Procurement, Need for Accelerated Policy Action, is co-authored by Dr. Yamini Atmavilas and Soumya Umar. The report presents a rapid analysis of India's public procurement landscape based on a detailed secondary desk-based review of data and information and stakeholder conversations. The report not only highlights these achievements, but also analyzes best practices both in India and globally to provide insights. Thank you so much. And I request Yamini and Soumya. We have a brief presentation of the key insights and recommendations. And I would request Soumya to join us on stage.
Thank you all so much, and thank you, Access, again for supporting this work, and I think continuing to push thought leadership on what are some ways one can solve for the many pressing challenges that women's enterprises face. And this one is coming out of a preoccupation with understanding market access and how one can actually look at ways that policies can ease market access for women entrepreneurs. The focus of this particular, and it's a nice session that's coming off of the previous session that talked about private sector procurement and how can social procurement sort of open up and creatively link in women's enterprises to value chains. And this particular session and this particular study focused on public procurement, but I think there are lots of lessons one can take from private sector procurement as well. Just very quickly, what is gender responsive public procurement? It's essentially opening up market opportunities that are created by the public sector, which could be ministries, public sector units, in their own services as well as goods markets, and creating some assured spaces where women's enterprises can get linked in. And I'll say at the outset that I think India has among the most progressive policy environments for public procurement. When we did a benchmarking that Soumya will also speak about shortly. But against global benchmarks, I think India has a policy environment that's very conducive and supportive. There are platforms and technologies that have actually made this far more conducive to ease of of business and ease of connecting in women's enterprises. However, what the work that needs to be done is in terms of implementation and small tweaks that one could do in order to make this all work. So I think the building blocks exist. It's always about that harmony that one needs to bring to actually making it work for the segment that we are interested in. So with that, we'll very rapidly present 5-10 minutes, in 10-12 minutes, what are key findings and some of the insights that are emerging. And then we'd love to sort of hear from the panelists in terms of the many efforts that are ongoing, and actually again bring harmony across the panelists to see how can we work together to solve for this. um, I have a lot of slides, but we'll go through them very quickly because I think to this audience, none of some of the early slides are not new, which is that India has an extremely comprehensive public procurement landscape that's best in class by many, many global benchmarks. The GEM platform, MSME Sambandh, the Central Public Procurement Portal, State Procurement Portal, and TREADS. In terms of platforms, and then in terms of laws and policies as well, not only is there a quota for MSME procurement, but also within that for women's businesses. And I think that's a pretty unique sort of space that has already been enabled and mainstreamed across the multiple sort of procurements opportunities that exist. This data was taken from July, so the numbers will be a little bit more now, but essentially there has been an increase in procurement from women entrepreneurs, and there is also, I think, the volume of opportunity is greater than the proportion, and that just speaks to just how much public procurement is happening within India. And lastly, the ministries that are leading in terms of procuring from women, quite unexpected sets of ministries, but also that the proportions are much higher than the threshold of 3% that is a quota that is available for women entrepreneurs. So I think there's a lot of positive trends and a lot of efforts happening to make procurement from women's businesses and make sure that assured markets are created and nurtured for them. However, there's more one can do, and that's, I hope, is what the conversation we'll have today will lead to. A third insight for us is essentially in terms of one of the gaps that we are seeing is that out of the total list of items that are available for listed as for procurement, women's enterprises only play in a small subset of those items. So we have to either sort of, and I'm sort of foreshadowing some of the recommendation pieces so that we keep that in mind. We have to either sort of think of within the areas that women actually do produce in, um, could we focus a lot more energy and attention and increase the quotas there. So where women's enterprises do produce and do serve, can we look at more preferential quotas there, or look at ways in which one can make that much more efficient and effective? Can we zero in there and make sure that the procurement for those items actually have a very proactive push and a very proactive way in which the matching can happen for women's enterprises to actually even become aware of the opportunity and then to be able to take up that opportunity. This insight 4, I'll hand over to Soumya, who's actually done some of the work on the state.
Right. So we did a quick benchmarking of not all of the states, but some of the key states that have some policies and institutional guidelines in place for state level public procurement. And to understand what drives the impact at the state level, we evaluated these states on multiple parameters, which were preferential procurement policies if they are present, the ease of access to tenders for women-owned enterprises, and integration of digital platforms for procurement. Our findings revealed some, I think, 2 to 3 critical insights. First is that leadership in gender responsive public procurement stems from states that proactively go beyond what has been mandated nationally to contextualize procurement at the state level. For example, Uttar Pradesh reserves 3% of its 25% of MSME quota for women owned businesses and actively engages with women owned enterprises at the SHG level through high value production models. Odisha, meanwhile, has a relaxed criteria for turnover, prior experience, and money deposits, which also creates pathways for smaller, informal women owned businesses to access these opportunities, which as we know, the majority of the women owned enterprises fall into that category. Second, the degree of the digital readiness is also emerging as a decisive factor. For example, states like Karnataka and Telangana, who have very advanced e procurement platforms and very robust systems in place, they ensure greater accessibility and transparency, while others might lag a little bit due to fragmented processes and offline processes which limit digitization. So basically, innovation in policy and technology is sort of key to bridging this gap between national intent and on-ground outcomes at the state level. We also realize that states that leverage localized support systems, such as your partnerships with SRLMs, community level entrepreneurship networks, they are better positioned to reach underserved women entrepreneurs. And again, underscoring the need for tailoring the implementation to regional contexts. While this is at the state level, we also try to understand what are some of the countries globally. Sorry, yeah. What are some of the countries globally doing, and what are the best practices that can be adapted to the Indian context? Um, should I move the slides? Yes. We identified some 5 key parameters to evaluate these practices, and we are going to spend a little more time on this because this also forms as a basis of some of our recommendations later that we'll talk about. So procurement quotas, digital readiness, proactive registration, capacity building, and accountability are some of the parameters that we uh, sort of benchmarked these global case studies on. And they also allowed us to assess if India is unlocking some of these enablers, or can India unlock some of these enablers. Uh, while India's 3% women-owned businesses, the quota is a good start. There are countries like South Korea who have taken it a little further with a 5% procurement target, which is also complemented by tax incentives and preferential credit schemes. So these measures not only ensure inclusion, but also actively lower the financial and operational barriers for women-owned businesses. So similarly, Chile embeds gender responsiveness into the procurement platforms. It has intuitive interface, it has real-time updates and supplier directories, making it easier for women-owned enterprises to apply and compete for tenders. There's another example that comes from Australia, where sector-specific capacity building programs address industries like construction and technology, where women's representation is traditionally and historically been low. These programs trained these enterprises and entrepreneurs in bid preparation, compliance, technical skills, ensuring that they're procurement ready and also submit a competitive bid. So again, while we'll talk about it in recommendations, but India can adapt this approach by focusing on textiles, agriculture, textiles, manufacturing, where we have presence of women and enterprises, and we know they can become an active supplier of these procurement products. There are also accountability mechanisms that set some of these global leaders apart. So, like South Korea has a real time tracking system to monitor GRPP outcomes and adjust the policies as needed. So, basically, ensuring that the quotas are not just aspirational but also achieved. So, for India, while we'll again talk about it a little later, enhancing the GEM and the MSME Sambandh integration and ensuring that there are similar tracking capabilities can create that data driven loop of uh, feedback and tracking. Another aspect is that some of these countries also link procurement to broader development goals. For example, Chile integrates gender responsive public procurement with its UN SDG commitments, making procurement actually a strategic tool for achieving gender equity. And India also has that opportunity to do the same by aligning GRPP with its economic development and gender equality objectives. So these examples actually show that government's role doesn't have to just be restricted to setting quotas, but also create an ecosystem and actually become an active market enabler and a market maker. Right. I think this another aspect to it that we measured, which is from the social procurement policies, and I think there's a lot that was talked about in the previous session as well. Social procurement offers us another lens to reimagine the government's role in the public procurement. Organizations like SAP that have demonstrated how inclusive procurement strategies can actually drive systemic change. There's a key lesson for government in using supplier diversity to expand market access. So SAP's platform like Ariba, they prioritize underrepresented suppliers and integrate them in the broader value chains through transparent systems. For the government, for India, platforms like GEM can actually replicate this by incorporating smarter discovery tools and proactively connect women-owned businesses with relevant opportunities. Two, three other takeaways, which are the strategic use of data and accountability mechanisms, capacity building, and treating it as an essential infrastructure tool is successful in these models. The key question for us basically becomes that how can governments and India adopt these principles to not only meet targets but also create an truly inclusive marketplace that drives long-term economic empowerment and changes in procurement. We'll move on to the recommendations and just. It's okay. I have 33. Um, like we understood from some of the best practices that we talked about globally, there's a shift that is needed in the perspective when we talk about public procurement, which is we need to move from a welfare mindset to a market enabler and a market maker mindset. So I think that's the first recommendation, which is more at a narrative change and a mindset level change, that we want to position gender responsive procurement as a sustainable competitive market for women owned enterprises. Secondly, just going through some of the features on the GEM portal, the government e-marketplace, and so I think we'll talk to you about that during the panel discussion as well. That there's a lot of scope, not just on the platform, but also in the processes that are being implemented through GEM, where we can showcase gender enterprises and women-owned enterprises through certifications, catalogs, campaigns. Um, uh, sorry there's a recommendation that we have, I think either in the report or in the deck itself, where there's a potential to showcase badges for ministries and departments that actually procure for women owned enterprises, highlighting them and actually demonstrating that they are focusing on gender equity in their and inclusive supplier chains. Yeah. So, yeah.
Let me come in here also. I think we've studied GEM very in and out, Anurag, and I think there's, one of the things I at least discovered happily is that compared to CONEPS and some of these very, very big globally well-known procurement marketplaces, I think GEM is among the best in class. And I think you sort of had the world's largest or third largest, maybe by now it's the largest, but flows through the platform itself. So I think it's something really to be applauded, that we have this kind of a system that's all not only has all the bells and whistles, but is actually functioning. So congratulations and our appreciation for that. And and having said that, of course, we aspire for you to do more for women's enterprises and women entrepreneurs. I think there are some ways that, while we have the digital readiness, we also need more hybrid in-person sort of complementary efforts. And so some of our recommendations are that when we know there are peaks in procurement demand, can we do more push mechanisms, right? Then some of that could be in the form of just paper-based catalogs that can go out to ministries, and we have the sort of list of ministries that do a lot of procurement from women, and then we have those that have procurement opportunities for what women are producing. So sort of creating that kind of a matrix and just really having a very strategic way of pushing this availability of supply, that there are women entrepreneurs and here are the catalogs. So sort of making it a live thing. I think the platform has has really sort of enhanced the visibility, but can we ensure that discoverability happens also in person? The second is, I think also thinking through, I think, there's Womania, there's Saras, there are so many different Divyanjan, Green Gold. So there's different. I spent a lot of time on GEM recently. So there are these really well sort of created, pages that actually aspire to specific inclusivity, inclusive entrepreneurs, right? So there is the, but on the landing page I don't find it, so correct me if I'm landing on the wrong page. But essentially I think it was something that we talked about in the previous panel with Flipkart also, right? This effort of, okay, we have the intent of being inclusive, how do we just mainstream it so that when I land on the GEM page or on the Flipkart page, I am actually also seeing these entrepreneurs and I don't need to then go find them. So that enhancing that discoverability, and today it's like, it's not that difficult to sort of push it. So can we find really interesting ways of making sure that we immediately go to them? And so the algorithms, push prompts, all of those, right, which are well known sort of digital marketing tools, can we sort of back end the tags so that they show up? Third bucket of recommendations for us are, ma'am, more in the realm of recognition, right? Like, how do we recognize the ministries that are doing this? How do you make buying from women entrepreneurs more aspirational for other ministries? And I think, as Soumya sort of said, this doesn't just feel like, okay, let's find some enterprises we can do so that we can to buy from, but actually it's something that gets them recognition, feels aspirational, is sort of recognized in their community of peers. And so, are there ways that one can get the excitement going around this? And so, champion building is something that I know the ministry has sort of done it. I think there are these lists, recognition lists that come out, but can we do a little bit of do it in a more campaign approach? And we also thought of something like badges, which, again, as Soumya sort of said a few minutes ago, can we, when we have, we found on, for example, the GEM portal, there are badges in terms of you're a gold, diamond, platinum sort of performer in terms of your payment, etc. So I think that's great. Can we also then recognize them as those that purchase from that recognize their social values, that they purchase from women and SCST and other sort of producers? So is there a way to sort of then enhance that visibility? And the third set for us is just, how do you just create this mix and match, right? Which is always the proverbial problem for us, of how do you get the buyers and the sellers to actually interact? And so we have a few sort of more digital ways we've thought of, that are campaigns and consumable videos that one can showcase. But again, if we'd love to sort of talk on the panel on how one can make that more exciting and successful. Um, our next set of recommendations are about entry barriers for women. So there's the discoverability piece, there's the incentivize your buyers, and then there's the third piece that is looking at how do you get women to sort of access these platforms and these opportunities. And again, here a lot of it is around accompaniment. So how does, I think, that gap in information access, that gap in sort of helping with registry, that gap in capacity building, I think there are small things, there are things that are there already in the policy climate and in the operation, in the ways, in the operational mechanisms, but they are not reaching rural women as effectively. And so there is a real opportunity to make that happen, and I think amp this up more. So identifying channels, I think if we take a push approach, then we are using platform channels that we have to push out information. But if we sort of look at it from the demand side, then where do women access information, where do they actually get, and where do rural women access information? Then I think that changes how we're approaching this solving for information asymmetry. And so I think for us, in our study, definitely the SHG network has sort of emerged as a really, really powerful way in which women get information, women share information, they understand, what are some new opportunities. So leveraging that in some proactive way could be a very, very strong way to take this forward. And of course, if the Womania fairs, I think these have been recommendations that Seva and others have been sort of making in the last few years of engaging and experience with GEM, but certainly would love to understand, where this might have, where we might do this more effectively. And the last, I think, just again to pick up a point Soumya made earlier, which is how do you mainstream procurement as a market approach? And so, wherever there are opportunities, rather than just waiting to sort of see, okay, there's that quota and one needs to fill it, how do you just mainstream procuring from women? And so, bringing it into conversations about quality, bringing it into conversations about productivity, about market making. I think we have to sort of push the field also a bit more around this, and where chambers of commerce can be sort of leveraged. And I know, Anurag, I met you so many times at some of these events. So for, certainly the intent is there. So let us know how one can actually make this successful, and where, organizations that are present here can actually partner with you to do that. um, the next one is, I think, more around this hubs of excellence, which is a little bit of that recognition, sort of picking up from recognition. But actually, if there are states or ministries that are doing it well, can we sort of lift up those and codify them, right? Lift up those practices and codify them as ways of doing things. And then they become, then, rather than us looking for information somewhere else, they become codified and they become sort of the information gap fillers. The last one I'll hand over to Soumya.
So I think this is a little technical in the sense that um, while there are different platforms that we have in our procurement system, like we have the Udyam registration portal, we have the community marketplace, and we have the MSME Samban, and TRDS, etc. Uh, we want we wanted to understand if there's a way to integrate these platforms to make this entire value chain seamless, right? And this is more than just a technical upgrade. The way we are approaching it, it's more of a fundamental shift in how we are approaching procurement processes overall. And these platforms are definitely effective on their own, but in their current capacities, they might be working in silos, and this is where we want to bring that integration in. So basically, a unified system would just simplify these processes for entrepreneurs and enterprises who are not as digitally ready, and who lack that capability and competence right now to access the opportunities, and allow them to register, showcase their projects, and track procurement opportunities seamlessly. So basically, imagine a scenario where a single registration on Udyam automatically feeds into the government e-marketplace and someone, and enables these entrepreneurs to participate in tenders and access the bids more seamlessly without navigating multiple platforms. This also reduces your administrative burdens and ensures better compliances with the procurement goals. The true value of this integration, though, in our minds, basically lies in the potential to generate those actionable insights. Right now, when we were also trying to get this data from someone, we also had to, look at three different platforms and understand how each of these correlate, and then understand how what are the actual data gaps, and where we can find real-time data. But this real-time data could actually help identify procurement gaps and enable targeted interventions. um, as we consider these possibilities, I think there's an open question that we wanted to also leave with, that how can we design such systems to be not just inclusive but also adaptive as we scale these things up, and ensure that they keep meeting the needs of different sets of women entrepreneurs. So there's another proposition of defining women entrepreneurs, that's a whole other conversation, but just also correlating these problems together. Yeah, I think that's mostly what we wanted to discuss, and there's a lot of other information in the report that is being given to you. There's a lot of detailed analysis on the states and the global best practices. I think just I'll hand over to Yamini to start the panel, and look forward to the insights here.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for a patient listen. And now we'll move over to the panel discussion. And I think where we wanted to sort of anchor this discussion was going forward, what are some new initiatives and some ways in which we are actually already solving for some of these gaps, and what might be things that we could do further. And so, ma'am, I'll start with you to understand what the ministry, I know this is such a core initiative of the ministry. So, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And to many of you, we are not new. I think we have met many times, and whatever we do, it's on the public domain. So you already know what MSME does, and how important MSME sector is for our economy, particularly as we move towards the Viksit Bharat. So women plays a very important role because we are also giving focus, and we want to be inclusive in our growth. And when we talk about women, we are also including the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes, then the Vyanjan and transgender and so forth. So policy matters because Government of India, we do policy. And for the market part, which I think today we'll be covering broadly more on that, Anurag is here from the GEM side, so he will speak. But on the MSME enabling ecosystem, government does policies. So, what are some of the key policies that we have taken up to create an enabling environment that I would like to share? First of all, from the study presentation that was given, formalization is a very important thing. That's the first step. So we call it Udium, and we realize that majority of the women are in informal sector IMFs. So they do not possess the PAN card, and they do not necessarily have the GST card, GSTN. So we have also created an enabler UAP, Udium Assist Portal. So they can come on board, and later on we help them, we handhold them, support them to get the GST and also the PAN card. So if you look at our portal today, it started in July 2020, then we are at 5.66 crore. And our aim is to reach 9 crore by 2029. And when we reach the 9 crore 2029, we would like to see gender parity, 50% of women. As of now, we are at 39%. So we are working towards that. That's the first step that our ministry is doing. Now, market is the end product of all the empowerment value chain, right? So for that, what are some of the key policies that our ministry has taken up? I just want to share a little bit here. We have procurement and market support scheme, PMS. We help all the MSMEs. By the way, I see that there are some foreigners also here, so maybe for the benefit of them, it will be a repetition for many of you. But by the way, first question: how many minutes do we have?
You can go about 7 minutes.
Okay, so you have to just stop me
Okay, I'll stop.
because there's no end to it. So our MSMEs up to 250 crore is an MSME, right? We know that. And out of this 5.66 crore registered on our UDM and UDM Assist portal, uh, uh, 95% plus are in the micro segment. There are also many representation from the industry association to create a nano segment, which we are still considering. It's yet to be out, so it's too early to speak. But we realize that many of the women entrepreneurs are in the nano segment. So how do we create a separate segment to support them, to handhold them, and to strengthen them? That is one of the things that our ministry might be taken up very soon. So for the PMS, we support our MSMEs to come and exhibit their products, and then also give them a platform where they can also find buyers. So this is also very important. Thousands of fairs and exhibitions we conduct in a year. And so many women come and then find market for their products. Another thing is we also look at the export market, and you are already aware that we want to double our exports by the time we reach 2047. So for that, we have international cooperation scheme where we have majorly two components. One is that we facilitate our MSMEs to go and participate in all those major fairs and exhibitions across the globe, sector wise. And we built up their capacity to understand what is the ecosystem there, what are kind of standards are required, whether there are markets for their products or not. So under IC, we conduct that. Another part is we also conduct conferences where experts in that particular sectors are invited to tell us, so that there will be a knowledge sharing, and also the best practices from across the globe can be told to our MSME. So these two verticals we handle under the IC scheme. um, Samban portal, a lot of it is already shared here. So Anurag is way ahead. We are still lagging behind in our software. So we have been discussing that we really need to upgrade and catch up with them, so that there can be an API integration. It'll be automatic, whatever UDM and all this thing. UDM, there is a little bit of a catch here, because when we take the details of the MSMEs, then there is a confidentiality clause where we will not be sharing to the public. So that part we have to take care of it, and then later on maybe seamless integration, API integration can take place. So that's also one of the things that we are considering. Now, for the women, the new scheme that we have taken up is TEAM, and that is under the RAM program, World Bank assisted again. We are trying to support and mature the ecosystem of the MSMEs. This is done with the state government because industry is a state subject. So we try to strengthen the institutions, the facilities that are required to really have the entire global value chain. So team is one of them, and we have 277 crore for this, and it'll be very helpful for the women because we will be onboarding on the ONDC, and there are 5 components here. One is awareness generation, demand creation, catalog development, onboarding on ONDC network, account management support, subsidy to transportation and logistics, and subsidy for packaging, including the packaging designs and branding. So these are some of the interventions that we will be bringing under the team. And I think women stand to gain because 50% of all these will be given to women. And another thing that we do is Samart initiative. We say that all the capacity building, scaling, training programs that we run in hundreds and thousands, so 20% will be mandatorily reserved for women. All the exposure that we give to market, whether domestic or international, 20% will be reserved for women. And there will be an UDM registration special campaign drive for onboarding women. So that's the third point. The fourth thing is all the commercial schemes of National Small Industry Corporation, NSIC, will be reserved for women. And we are giving higher subsidy for them also. So these are some of the initiatives that we have taken to encourage women. And of course, the Government of India public procurement policy, 3% reserve for women, that you are already aware. And also the caution money, which GM used to demand from the MSEs, that has been waived off for women, SC, ST, and Divyanjan. So that's also one very positive step. Another thing that we have initially taken up is the Yashishwini campaign, which I think I've shared earlier also. This is in partnership with Women Entrepreneurship Platform of Niti Aayog. And so, for those of you who are already tagging the Niti Aayog social media handles, you are already aware. So, what we are doing here is we will give them the numbers, okay? Because numbers with MSME is no issue. For this campaign, we have partnered with RD also, because SAG Group's 10,000 crore hai SAG members. So we become the natural partner to handhold the SAG members to become entrepreneurs and enterprise creators. So for that, we have started this initiative, and we want to onboard them, help them, and once they get registered on the UDM or UDM Assist portal, they can access the 20 odd schemes that we run, and also many of the schemes that Government of India gives. So that opens up a window for them to build up their capacities and then enter the mainstream economic activities. So under this, WEP will be bringing the mentorship component, which is very, very important, because they have all the corporates and all the other agencies, be it World Bank or Melinda, or all of these things will be already empaneled with them. So they bring in for specific mentorship. So we have already done with wellness, urban company. We already done the SOI. So they are coming and mentoring some of the women who are in this sector. Also, makemytrip.com for those women who are in tourism sector. Makemytrip.com is also training them, has already done one, and I think many are coming up again. Another bulk women MSCs that we find here is on textiles. So textile is also one of them, and one is on food and beverages. So these are some of the things that we do at the ministry level. And maybe, yeah, there are some more. So maybe in the next question I will take up. But yeah, for the policy intervention, please follow us on our social media handles, because we are very active. We keep on posting success stories also on a daily basis. We also keep posting the scheme features also on our social media handles, and we keep organizing awareness campaign, conclaves, and also interactive platforms. We keep having it almost on a daily basis. So please follow us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Over to you, Anurag, a little bit of the
Uh,
GEM perspective and maybe some responses to the recommendations also would be great.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody. Want to thank Access Dev for this opportunity to meet all of you, and also esteemed panelists, friends that I have been working with in the last couple of years. So, with that, I just want to briefly share. How many of you have heard about GEM? If I can just take a straw poll. Oh, great. Okay, this is a very good audience. So I'm sure you know what GEM is all about. It's the National Unified National Public Procurement Portal, where all the central, state, ministries, departments, autonomous bodies, CPSCs, Panchayati Raj institutions, and cooperative societies are buyers. So think of it like a private e-commerce platform, but only for the government. And on the other hand, we have sellers who are either OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, resellers, sellers from the inclusive group, which is the women entrepreneurs, micro small enterprises, artisans, weavers, self-help groups, so on and so forth. A segment which never worked with public procurement or with government buyers before. So thanks to the digital intervention called GEM, they are now able to participate and procure orders. And then, of course, there is something called Works, which is going to be rolled out in the next couple of months. There's no definite date, but once it's done, then we'll let you know. So we started operations in 2016, and we've done 8 years, and we have fairly good milestones to share with you. We have around what last year we did 4 lakh crores in the gross merchandise value, which is our way of measuring the volume of business that is transacted through the portal. And I'm happy to inform you that we have around 22 lakh or 2.2 million sellers on the platform, of which 9.8 lakh or 0.98 million, close to a million, are micro small enterprises. And till date, they have completed around 40% of the gross merchandise value, which is a very good number for micro small enterprises to make the mark in public procurement. Now, within this micro small enterprises group of 9.8 lakh, we have around 1.71 lakh women entrepreneurs. These are all Udyam verified women entrepreneurs, and they have done business around 45,000 crores, which is also a good number for us. And then we have the MSMEs from the social sector, which is the SCST category, and they have done around they're around 51,000. They've done 8,000 plus crores in business. So GEM has kind of given a space to all these verticals which earlier were working very hard but haven't had much success or were trying to make progress in public procurement. We have been looking at these seller groups from various perspectives, from the NGO perspective, from the civil society, from the government perspective, and also from the individual micro small enterprise. And we have come up with certain interventions which I believe will help the micro small sector, women entrepreneurs, not only get orders but also create livelihoods in the process. So one of the interventions, and I think Sandhya was referring to earlier, was the interlinking of databases within the government, which is Udyam, GEM, MSME Sambandh. I'm happy to inform you that when Udyam was rolled out in 2020, and a really wonderful program from the Ministry of MSME, we were able to integrate in a very short span of time. And so anyone who's applying for an Udyam could give his consent to share the data with GEM database when they were issued an Udyam number. So the moment you sign up for Udyam and you give consent to share your data with GEM, the moment you are issued an Udyam number, your information is shared with GEM, and GEM in turn sends an SMS and an email notification saying that this is your auto-generated login ID. Please reset the password and complete your seller profile so that you can become an MSE on the GEM. This is a great step because we're able to mobilize a large number of micro small enterprises as sellers on the GEM platform. This is verified data with information about women, MSMEs, and that's how we're able to scale up in a very short span. So thank you, MSME, for helping us out there. The next thing that we've done is we looked at women entrepreneurs, because gender responsive procurement is the need of the hour. And we felt that women from the informal sector were underrepresented in public procurement. So we came up with something called Womania page, a dedicated marketplace with categories where only women entrepreneurs could list their products. And we did that by giving them icons and marketplace filters. So if any government buyer is procuring through L1 or a direct purchase, he can select the filter, and only product catalogs from women entrepreneurs will be displayed for procurement. So this is one way of promoting women entrepreneurs. And secondly, in the bid process, where you have big ticket orders, they can include the clause that we would like women only to participate. And thanks to Ministry of MSME's 3% inclusion for women in procurement, it has gone a long way in sensitizing government buyers. But there's still a lot of work to be done, and I'm sure that in the coming months and years, coming months, we'll get to work with various participants here in this room to increase the livelihood opportunities and the participation of women in public procurement. Lastly, I just want to say there are a lot of interventions I can go on, but I'd like to just be brief. We are coming up with something called Gem Sahayak. Now, Gem Sahayak is an assisted is something like a training specialist, a trainer who is located at a district level. So, if any seller has any issues with seller registration or with bid participation or any other aspect related to the seller vertical, he can go online on Gem. He can reach out to a seller, to a Sahayak or an assistant, and get the assistance on a paid basis. So this will create livelihood opportunities for say 5 to 7,000 trainers across the country. And I think this is an excellent way for women to come and participate in public procurement so that they can understand the issues faced by sellers, especially women entrepreneurs, and help them scale up and speed up their participation in the public procurement. The last thing I want to say is we are also participating exclusively in various trade fairs and exhibitions like India International Trade Fair and a couple of other prestigious events across the country where we have rolled out immersive onboarding. So if you are a seller and you walk into our booth or we reach you at your stall, we will not only get you registered on the spot, but we'll also do cataloging, photo shoot and cataloging of your product and upload the product before the end of the fair. So what happens is exhibitors who have done a lot of work in creating a product are sometimes challenged to get the right image on a marketplace, and this is where we help you, and we'll get you your catalog uploaded and available for procurement. So that kind of shortens the time for you from production base to a marketplace. So awards and recognition. I want to compliment Access Dev for a fantastic report. I was just flipping the pages and said, this is like my playbook for the next 1 year. So thank you very much, Access Dev. And thank you all, and all the best.
Thank you, Anurag, and we'll follow up with you to sort of see how we can continue to work together. Yeah, ONDC, new kid on the block, no longer new kid, I guess, but lots of hopes and aspirations, and also I think in the last year and a half, a lot of learning. So over to you. We'd love to know how you've sort of prepared or are preparing ONDC for sort of the segment that we are sort of dealing with, which Mercy sort of said it's a largely informal enterprise ecosystem. Over to you.
Absolutely. No, good afternoon, and thank you so much, Axis, for organizing this, the summit, and for all your valuable time for everybody who's present here. I think just for everybody who might not know ONDC a little bit, maybe I'll just take like half a minute to explain it in a crux, right? So it's not a platform. ONDC is not a platform, right? So, and we have been working with platforms in the past, decade and a half, and now with the whole UPI, coming into place and how we sort of bypassed a lot of technologies. The idea is that how do we create an UPI network for e-commerce, right? That's where the idea of ONDC has come about. But putting it simply, like how in a platform the sellers are brought by the same platform, the buyers are bought by the same platform, right? The logistics is bought by the same platform, the tech is created by the same platform. In an ONDC network, everybody who makes these tech applications start talking to each other. So there are many seller applications, there are many buyer applications, there are many logistics applications. Everybody gets to talk in this common language of the ONDC protocol. So primarily that's what it is. So when I talk about the tech applications to get the supply, I will use the term seller applications. So I'll give you an idea about what we are doing from a gender intentional lens to look at how do we create the ecosystems for e-commerce for women. And of course, we are eyes and ears looking at what is the innovation that's coming up, right? With the kind of affirmative actions that we are actually partnering with. Ma'am just mentioned about the teen theme. We're also obviously having GEM also integrated onto the network. We have a whole bunch of funding partners. I think we have got NASCOM Foundation also present here, which is looking at specifically women from the rural segments to basically be able to onboard. We have got organizations such as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, SIDBI. So quickly, just sort of taking you through how and what we are really doing in that entire value chain. So when we talk about the seller side, right? So there is something called as a seller application. It's like a technology application to onboard sellers. I can train sellers, I onboard their catalogs, I give them handholding, so on and so forth. When we talk about these projects, how within the government and the philanthropies which have now sort of funded and are looking at women entrepreneurs coming in, we are trying to. So today we have two dedicated seller applications which are designed around women. They're supposed to only onboard women-led entrepreneurs. So how does the UI UX look like? That's some of the things that we are working on. So how does the UI and UX look like of these different seller applications? This particular project is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So we have something like that at the on-ground assisted commerce level, because we understand that again, uh, in order to navigate, multiple constraints for women, it's obviously difficult, right? Because you need a market linkage, you need credit linkage, uh, you know, uh, bunch of other services are required. So in an open network sort of facilitates that when you have there are so many barriers and constraints. So how do you have an integrated network which will actually give you the right ingredients for you to be able to onboard it is easily and grow easily? So we have these seller applications that are designed like that. We have assisted e-commerce models. So on ground, like we've done a few pilots with the help of SIDBI with Hak Darshak. So how do we, have digital DDs to basically look at onboarding sellers from their villages or their vicinity? How do we have Hak Darshak doing that? And how do you incorporate the realities of women around when you create programs like that? So on the supply side, we have things like that. Again, because of the affirmative actions, like Anurag just mentioned, the cataloging bit. So on the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we have 50 SKUs. Just cataloging is going to be free. Um, and other aspects again, when we talk about sachetized loans or sachetized insurance, how we are also giving that integrated services on the network on the supply side. Now, while we've been doing that, one of the most important things, while funding is absolutely important, but it's also important for us to learn from the people who have been working with women for all of these years. So what we have is also a huge network of the supply organization. So again, spanning from rural to peri-urban to urban associations for women. So when we talk about rural, of course, we're working with the Ministry of Rural Development to look at how do we onboard these women SHGs, what are their realities, and how would e-commerce look like for them? If we design an e-commerce ecosystem around these women, what would that look like? Working extensively with the Mandeshi Foundation, who ultimately helped us understand that these are women. They cannot have a parcel picked up after 9 p.m. at night, for example, right? From an e-commerce parlance. So that's something that we are working very extensively with these kind of grassroots organizations who have worked with women, and how do we really understand what e-commerce could be like when we design some systems around them. We have organizations like Fiki Flow, Ubuntu Consortium, both in the urban areas, to look at what is that network of women entrepreneurs, and what are the, apart from the risk-taking appetite that an entrepreneur needs to have, what are the intra-household risks that you need to really fight on, right? So really basically designing all of that. I think when we come to the demand side, right? I spoke about a little bit about the supply side. There is assisted commerce. There are tech that are being made around women. But when we talk about the supply side and the demand side, so these are buyer applications like Paytm, PhonePe, My Store, all of these guys. There are today we have about 20 plus buyer applications. If you open any one, you can just shop on ONDC on all of these applications, right? So what we have started doing, and again, these are some of the recommendations that had actually come. We have actually done the badging part. So seller applications who onboard these women, both from a rural and an urban context, are able to badge women-led enterprises or women entrepreneurs. What's happening, and I mean, it would be great if I were to just show it to you also. So if you go on My Store and if you search for Mandeshi Foundation, you will see that there's a badge of women-led enterprises. इसके बाद होगा क्या, right? Objective would be that how do the buyer apps, how do the buyer apps on the network pull the women entrepreneurs, the products and the services that the women entrepreneurs are selling, and showcase them on a property. So if there is the festive season, if there is Women's Day coming up, those kind of things, how do we run campaigns around it? So that's something that we are doing. We've already done the badging. We understand that there is a need to have gender responsive procurement. We are talking with organizations that do impact sourcing to basically be able to buy from women. Now, I think one thing that we sort of learned for a lot of these women, and we spoke about, right? Majority of the women entrepreneurs are actually rural. So what happens is that with having no little to no experience on e-commerce, these are obviously very limiting factors, right? E-commerce is very much real time. You accept orders real time. You have an e-commerce etiquette. You need to have a e-commerce behavior when you accept orders or you ship it in time. So a lot of these, one of the things that Sidbi had done last year was, having gift vouchers to buy only from small sellers, and the majority of them were actually women. So what it ultimately did is that it trained these women to be able to accept and develop e-commerce behavior. It helped them understand what is phygital inventory management, because they're going to the fairs, they're also doing e-commerce. So I think a lot of changes coming up there on the demand side. We also would look to partner with a whole bunch of feminist organizations who are who either have blogs or who have different social media presence, but to look at how do we innovatively utilize these channels to be able to buy from women. But I urge everybody to sort of give a chance to be shopping from the ONDC network. It's B2C. It's very simple, and you can shop from women-owned enterprises.
Great.
So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nandita. And I have ordered food via ONDC, and it's much quicker and better. Last speaker, Suhela. I think you have such a bird's eye view on everything that's going on, having worked in the space for such a long time. Would love to sort of get your 5-minute commentary.
4 minutes.
All right, great. You'll
Thank
get
you
a
so much.
badge for that.
Thank you. Thank you for having you and women here in this conversation. We work a lot on gender responsive procurement globally and in India as well, and we understand it from two perspectives. One is, of course, buying directly from women-led businesses and diverse businesses, but also buying from those enterprises and businesses that are investing in creating a gender responsive environment in their marketplace, in their community, and in their workplace interventions. Now, so we engage, I'm talking about slightly about corporate procurement here, but also trying to see that how the opportunities that have been created by public procurement here in India can be leveraged to also push for the corporate procurement, because there is a huge sort of opportunity for us in India through corporate procurement to also bring more women into access to markets. Now, we have a tool called Women's Empowerment Principles, which is a set of 7 principles that guide companies to strengthen gender equality in their workplace, marketplace, and community interventions. So globally, there are over 10,000 CEOs that have committed to women's empowerment principles. In India, we have over 420 companies. Now, one of the principle 5, talks about marketplace interventions, and that principle specifically looks at gender responsive procurement, apart from also making sure that how your marketing and branding practices are not creating gender stereotypical notions for both women and men. But I keep my intervention limited to gender responsive procurement. So after the company signs women's empowerment principles, we also encourage them to undertake a gap analysis tool, which helps them understand where they stand in terms of their status on those principles. The 2 principles that where the companies struggle most that we have found is principle 1 on women's leadership across across boards, and the second principle is gender responsive procurement. So together with Confederation of Indian Industries and We Connect International, we developed a program to work with procurement leads of top 20 companies in India. 3 learnings we had. One was that companies even do not know what gender responsive procurement is. The second was, so they don't know, and they also did not know that what is the value, the business value of a gender responsive procurement or a supplier diversity program. The second was that many of them, and most of them, were not tracking their procurement spend on women-led businesses and those that they're buying from others as well. And the third thing, which is very very relevant, and here I see the opportunity to leverage public procurement, is that they do not have access to authentic women led buyers. They say, where do we find them? And now with Udyam portal, and now with these integrations where there is an opportunity to create that database, I do see a huge opportunity here to leverage the existing platform and database to be able to create that opportunities for women as well. But from women's perspective, what we also found is that they also find it very very difficult to access corporate supply chains, and I'm sure it is true for public procurement opportunities as well. There is a dearth of lack of awareness and information about how to access these opportunities, but also the skills and capacity of women led businesses to be able to produce that quality of good and that kind of quantity of goods, and which is where we need to leverage opportunities created by our policies and programs, so that you're not only creating a supply for public procurement but also corporate procurement. One of the things that we did was also to create a gender responsive procurement tool, which is accessible to all our web signatories, which helps them to also not only assess what are the gaps in their existing policies and practices, but also helps them in developing an action plan to take long term, short term, and medium term sort of interventions. We are very closely working with Anurag to formalize a formal partnership, hopefully in 2025, to work on the public procurement side of things. But we continue to work on corporate procurement and look forward to leveraging the opportunities of both of these aspects to be able to create better opportunities for women. Take a pause here.
Thank you. Thank you for keeping to time. Thank you to all the panelists. We have about 7 to 8 minutes for an open Q&A. If people have questions, I'd love to see a show of hands. I also invite हमारी सेवा से जो बहनें आई हुई हैं, would love to sort of invite them to ask a question. Yeah, we'll just come to you. We wanted to get a experience sharing from our. आप उधर से बात कर लीजिए. जी.
मेरा नाम साधना है और मैं सेवा से प्रमोटेड क्लीन कोऑपरेटिव में चेयरपर्सन हूँ. हमारी कोऑपरेटिव में हम क्लीनिंग का काम ले रहे हैं और सब बहनों को जुड़ते हैं उनसे. तो हमारा जो जैम और वो उसमें नहीं हो रहा है. हमारा जो जैम में हम करने जा रहे हैं तो हमारा होता नहीं है वो मंडली के ओर से. तो उसमें कोई दिक्कत आ रही है तो हम टेंडर नहीं भर पाते हैं उसमें जैम पोर्टल में.
जी, थैंक यू. अनुराग.
हाँ, आपका जो जहाँ आपको परेशानी आ रही है वो एक वेंडर असेसमेंट प्रोसेस है, लेकिन आप कौन सी प्रोडक्ट में उसको लिस्ट कर रही हैं या सर्विस में?
नहीं, सर्विस में सर.
सर्विस में, तो सर्विस में आपको वेंडर असेसमेंट की कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है. आप इस कार्यक्रम के बाद एक बार हम आपसे आपकी समस्या का जानकारी ले लेंगे और फिर जहाँ भी आपको मदद चाहिए विल हेल्प यू आउट. तो
थैंक यू सर.
यू वेलकम.
Yeah, sorry, you had a question. I think I saw a show of hands here. There's a microphone. Just please go up to the microphone. Yeah. We'll just take 2-3 questions together and then close. And I request everyone to keep their questions short. Thank you.
I don't think if I'll be able to keep it short, but I'll try my best.
please.
Hi,
Yes, I
my
request
name
you.
is Faza, and I'm from the Center for Catalyzing Change. So recently, I'll just directly come to the point. We did a study in which we were trying to see the livelihood spaces for women's economic empowerment and income generation program in Bihar. So it was very saddening that one of the results which came out from our baseline study was that there is a lack of aspiration in women to build careers and to generate income, because birds who've grown in cages do not know what flying is, and they see flying as an illness despite being in very poverty prone areas. they see that there will be this agency which will come with a target of 5,000, 10,000, maybe a lakh, train them, and when they go, what happens is that the business is not sustainable. So there was these women in Muzaffarpur area of Bihar who said that we were trained in mushroom growing. Mushroom seeds were given, we were trained, we grew, we sold. But what happened that after that, the partner just abandoned them and they went. So mushroom seeds are expensive. They might not be expensive for you and I, but for them they are. And as a result, it couldn't be there. The business does not exist. So my question after listening to Nandita and Shahla is, what do we do about building aspiration in women?
Thank you. Thank you. I'll take, I think I saw another hand here. Yeah, please walk up to the microphone. We'll take two more questions and then we'll.
Hi, I am Malika from Development Alternatives Group. So we have been working with the CLFs and working towards development of bigger manufacturing unit. And one of the examples that I could quote right now is oil expeller that we have been doing in Bundelkhand region. One of the problems that we are facing is I really appreciate ONDC's work, what Nandita ma'am just told us. But the point is, how are they going to compete with the price that the bigger brands are catering to? And what are the things that you guys are, if we have to pilot something of that sort, because we are also planning to take it phygital, because the campaigns that also we are taking up in these particular areas for non-traditional enterprise setup, we are also focusing on non-phygital model of mobilization, which we can discuss later on because of the time constraint. But when it comes to the price part, there is a difference. So how we can take that up?
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay. Maybe you'll.
Yeah.
Over to you, Nand.
So I have for the first question.
You can answer both together. And then
Do you want to also contribute to the first?
I can contribute.
Yeah.
After you,
Yeah.
please
So
go
I think. How I would understand this problem for, I mean, of course, right? I mean, it's a generational thing. We've been conditioned to feel a certain way, and it takes a lot of time. But few of the things that I have noticed in my career, in my developmental, sort of career growing up, is that networks of women really support each other. At the grassroots, of course, we have something called as self-help groups or whatever. In the in sort of the urban areas, we have these women, women networks, women support groups, and so on. Because the problems are very similar. It sort of helps build confidence, because if you're in isolation, and you have your familial system, I don't think it gives an opportunity for women to really, the same thing, right? Intra-household risks. मैं entrepreneur बनूंगी तब when I'm able to take this risk, right? And I think so it's really the support of these networks of women that really help. Of course, it requires a mobilizing agency. If you have a grassroots organization that works with women, that's another plus. So I think it's a combination of three. I don't have a very straight answer to that. I don't know if you'd like to take a stab at that one.
Yeah, I can quickly take up. So, of course, we have seen, and UN Women has been working in this area for decades, and we do sort of go by the principles of feminist organizing, where we create safe spaces for women to be able to share, their issues and challenges, and also trying to understand and create an environment to talk about their aspirations. On contrary, I would also like to say that Bihar, and for that matter, Odisha, is also one of the states where you see huge number of young girls going to southern India to work in factories, to work in other such jobs as well. We work with organization Pradhan. Most of you have been knowing them, and one of the things they told us that there has been a shift in aspirations from older women to younger women, where younger women are more aspiring for going out of their houses and creating and building that career for them. So of course there is a shift. It's a shame that this particular organization was able to create such a nuisance in that area. But I won't say that things are that bad. I think we really have good things.
Mercy.
Yeah.
Mercy, do you want to add anything?
It's okay. I think Yeah, I think we are also working in awareness creation and also capacity building. And we also look for a champion in the community who can be a role model so that the mindset changes. Because until the mindset change, I think things are pretty much, the same. But as our panelist has already said, that for the younger generation, things are different. So hopefully, we will be able to correct that and see that we all grow together. Inclusive growth takes place.
Do you want to take the next
Yeah.
question for like just a minute and
Yeah,
then we
just
have
a
to
minute on that
close?
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we're noticing is that when different sort of enterprises are now coming onto e-commerce, right? They are very sort of a products. The product proposition could be amazing, right? They could be very niche products, but pricing is a very important strategy, just like packaging is, right? There are all of these nuances to e-commerce that we probably did not think of before because there was a fairs, right? You would ultimately be in a fair, and therefore if you find something interesting then and there, you would buy it. But now the proposition really comes down to how are you really telling your products, right? I mean, if I'm making papad, how do I make it attractive for you to buy is something that a product description can really help in that. Of course, ONDC is creating, all of these seller network partners are creating AI based capabilities, in the sense that if I write pink Kanchipuram silk sari, it'll generate a description for me. Of course, this is also like a learning sort of, there's also a learning module to it. And eventually you should be able to come up with your own sort of creative sort of things, and also assisted commerce. But I think things like pricing, things like packaging, things like product descriptions, even product innovation, a lot of a lot of people who have those same skill sets, how do you really design those products for today? So fortunately or unfortunately, when we do come into any commerce play, and especially into e-commerce, then yeah, absolutely, yeah. No, actually, so at Mandeshi Foundation, for example, many such women were making groundnut oil, sesame seed oil. But the fact of the matter is that how did they engage with their customer on WhatsApp? If you bought from me, you get a message from me on WhatsApp. You're talking about what you have done is not just an impact sourcing, but also it comes from the heart of this particular village. So I think it's really how you tell your story, and I think it's those instances, because it's not Colgate ka toothpaste that we are selling, right? It's not just one. Maybe it could be a variety of chawal, but how do we really tell our story? How do we display our catalogs? Things like packaging, they're still not very much understood with a whole bunch of partners that we have, but we understand that those are things that really work, right? So I don't know if that really helped, but
We
of course we can
can
discuss this in detail. Yeah.
thank you, and we can continue, I think, over lunch. But thank you all so
I'll
much. Huge thank you to our panelists
excuse
and
me.
to the
I just
audience.
want to
Oh,
share something.
sorry. Where
Yeah.
is this? Oh, sorry.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry to be late. Okay. So
Meenakshi,
I can speak in English, but I'll stick to Hindi because Sadhna Ben to understand in Hindi. साधना बहन आपके लिए मैं हिंदी में बात कर रही हूँ, बाकी सब समझ सकते हैं। तो एक मैं सेवा कोऑपरेटिव फेडरेशन से हूँ और मैं कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग टीम में काम करती हूँ, जहाँ मैं ग्रास रूट बहनों की एंटरप्राइज डेवलपमेंट पे काम करती हूँ। और एक शेयर एक्सपीरियंस ऐसा करना चाहूँगी कि ओएनडीसी पे हमने 2 कोऑपरेटिव्स को ऑनबोर्ड किया था। एक हमारी आयुर्वेदिक कोऑपरेटिव थी और एक हमारी आर्टिजनल कोऑपरेटिव थी। तो उसमें काफ़ी सारे चैलेंजेस आए हमको इनिशियली, जैसे कि ऑनबोर्ड करने में हमने माई स्टोर पे ऑनबोर्ड किया था। तो माई स्टोर पे कैटेगराइजेशन का बहुत हमें इशू आया कि जैसे कि होम डेकोर था और फैशन था, बट अगर हैंडीक्राफ्ट स्पेसिफिकली उसको प्लेस करना है तो वो कैटेगराइजेशन नहीं था। और ऑल्सो आयुर्वेदिक प्रोडक्ट्स में बहुत सारे प्रोडक्ट्स होते हैं, तो एक साथ जब हम ऑनबोर्ड कर रहे थे सारे प्रोडक्ट्स को, तो लिस्ट करने के लिए जब हम पूरा बल्क डाल रहे थे तो उसमें वो कैटेगराइजेशन नहीं आया था, बट वन बाय वन जब हमने प्रोडक्ट्स अपलोड किए तो ये कैटेगराइजेशन आया। तो हमें एक रिकमेंडेशन ये देना था कि बेसिकली एक एसओपी होना चाहिए प्लेस पे, जहाँ पे सेलर नेटवर्क पार्टनर्स के बीच में और ये कोऑपरेटिव्स के ऑनबोर्डिंग के टर्म्स एंड कंडीशंस हो। और ऑफ कोर्स एक ही सेलर नेटवर्क पार्टनर जो है माई स्टोर, जो काफ़ी अच्छा रिस्पॉन्स हमें मिला बाकी अदर सेलर नेटवर्क पार्टिसिपेंट्स के अलावा। और इसमें ऐसा होता है कि बहनों को हैंड होल्डिंग सपोर्ट चाहिए कंटिन्यूसली, क्योंकि उन्हें नहीं समझ आता, क्योंकि बहुत कॉम्प्लेक्स
होता है रजिस्ट्रेशन पार्ट, और ग्रीवेंस रिड्रेसल पार्ट भी नहीं है, जहाँ पे बहनों को बहुत बारी दिक्कत आ जाती है कि अगर उनका शिपमेंट कोई कहीं पर जाके वापस आ रहा है तो उसमें क्या टर्म्स एंड कंडीशन होंगे। तो इस को रिड्रेस करने के लिए कोई एक पर्टिकुलर पॉलिसी नहीं है प्लेस पे, तो इसके लिए हम आपसे सपोर्ट चाहेंगे इसके ऊपर।
Sure.
थैंक
Sure.
यू।
I'll talk to you after this. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Seva se jo bahni aayi hai, because I think you really ground the discussion in real world solutioning that's needed. And so I think we are very inspired by digital solutions, but they need to take people along. So with that, I thank all our panelists, and over to Meenakshi.
I think a huge round of applause for all our panelists, including Dr. Yamini Atmavilas for her brilliant moderation. And just a small token of our appreciation, we would like to present you with a goodie bag. And may I request the tokens? Yes, all made by women, Access Women. Yeah. And may I also request Vipin sir to come on stage so that we have a nice group picture with our esteemed panelists. May I also request Soumya, who has co-authored this landscape study along with Dr. Atma Vilas, to come on stage. Please, Vipin. आ जाइए ना. Yeah, he's not there. Yeah.